It has been a long while since we've done a comedy timeline. I thought it time to bring back with the Pink Panther. I'm not talking like that throughout the whole video. But yeah, I figured we should go and check out this rather long historied comedy timeline, The Pink Panther, and check out exactly if there's some sort of timeline or continuity. Like, comedies are kind of hard because you don't expect them to have much in the way of continuity. But let's see how this series does. We begin all the way back in 1963 with The Pink Panther. It starts with a young princess named Dala getting a gift from her father, a giant pink diamond that has a flaw in it that resembles a panther, so it's called The Pink Panther. There's then the opening title sequence, which is animated, and has the Pink Panther character. And here's the thing. This was his first appearance. He was so popular that they spun him into his own series of animated shorts in a cartoon series on Saturday morning. We're in Rome, and there's a man who steals a bunch of jewels and escapes. Also, in Hollywood, number 2 is here, on the run from what seems like mobsters. Then, in Paris, there's a current newspaper telling us that we're set in February of 1963, and that the jewel thief is called the Phantom. Dr. Strangelove is here too, and he's on the search for a mysterious woman, not realizing that it's actually his own wife. Next, though, we have Sir James Bond, and he's at a ski resort, and that little princess is here now, all grown up, and her father's regime has been overtaken, and the new government wants that diamond back. Everyone is here, including Clouseau, who's a bit of a bumbler, and his wife is having an affair with Sir Charles. But that's not his only secret, since he's also the Phantom, and he and Simone are plotting to steal the Panther. Charles tries to seduce Dala, getting her drunk, and seems to have second thoughts. But then, his nephew George is there as well, unexpectedly, and he's also a scam artist, and he starts to threaten his uncle's plans. He also tries to practically force himself on Simone, and there's a series of shenanigans with their plot almost being exposed, and Clouseau just not catching on. They eventually figure out that Charles is the Phantom, and everything converges at a big costume party as everyone tries to get the diamond, leading to a chase through the streets of Rome. Charles and George crash and are arrested, and they go to trial shortly after. During the trial, they try to accuse Clouseau of being the Phantom, and he reveals the Panther planted on him by Dala to rescue Charles. The inspector is taken away as Charles, George, and Simone drive off to plan their next heist. That was followed 1 year later, in 1964, with A Shot in the Dark, which begins with a big mansion, and a bunch of people basically sneaking around with multiple trysts going on. But everything ends with a series of gunshots. The opening sequence doesn't feature any Panther action, and instead just has a little animated Clouseau. We then meet Commissioner Dreyfus, played by Herbert Lom, and he hears about the shooting and finds out that Clouseau has been assigned to the case accidentally. Somehow, he's out of jail, and it's not mentioned how, but at the ending of the last one, Charles said that they'd free Clouseau as soon as the Phantom struck again, and they realized that it couldn't be him. Turns out that Miguel, the head chauffeur, had been killed, and Maria was found with a gun in her hands. The inspector questions her, and between the last film and this one, his accent has dramatically increased. When he goes home, he's attacked by a mysterious man named Kato, but he's his manservant and is meant to attack him to sharpen his skills. He doesn't think Maria did it and goes on the case to question the suspects, and when he enters a nudist camp, there's a calendar up, but it's out of focus, although a man is reading La Semaine magazine, a French magazine, and you only get a glimpse of the cover, but it's distinct enough that I was able to peg it as the June 1964 issue, so it would appear that we're a little over a year after the last one, and the inspector likely was only incarcerated for a short time. There's then more murders as Clouseau gets closer to Maria, and an assassin tries to take him out, accidentally killing other people. And there's a newspaper reporting on it, and it says that it's July, but I can't quite see the year, although it doesn't quite look like a 4 here, but it's too hard to tell. He calls all the suspects to announce that he thinks he knows who killed Miguel, and everyone reveals their affairs, and it turns out that all of them killed someone in order to cover their affairs. Everyone except Maria. It's then revealed that Dreyfus was the assassin all along, fed up with his bumbling and trying to kill him, and he put a bomb in his car, but all the murderers try to get away in it and are blown up. Dreyfus is taken away, and Clouseau kisses Maria, only to be jumped by Kato. It gets weird here because the franchise took a 4-year break and didn't return until 1968 with Inspector Clouseau, which opens with another animation, again sans Panther. This is weird because it's the first that's not directed by Blake Edwards, and that opening theme is not by the great Harry Mancini, and in fact, when we see Inspector Clouseau, it's not even Peter Sellers. Instead, it's Captain Invincible. He's called in by Scotland Yard to help them on a case to return several crime gang members who have escaped custody, and since they know that there's a traitor within their department, they've called in someone from the outside. He gets paired up with Weaver, who gears him up in some Bond-style gadgets and gets invited by his wife to a Scottish festival, and there's an attempt on his life that he's able to thwart. Some more shenanigans ensue, including them making a mask of Clouseau's face and him accidentally killing yet another of the criminals. At one point, he ends up in the middle of a parade, and there's these banners up about an event, and it's dated 1967. So that seems like our year here, and we're 3 years after the last one. Now, that brings up the question as to whether this is even the same continuity. Like, during the filming of Shot in the Dark, Peter Sellers and Blake Edwards fought constantly and swore to never work together again, and Sellers said he was done with Clouseau. That whole never work together thing didn't last too long though, because at this time they were shooting The Party together, and they really wanted another movie with the character, so they cast Arkin. Because of the lack of Sellers, and since only Clouseau is here and none of the other supporting characters, this can be seen as a separate continuity, but it could just as easily be a part of the series as well. The criminals use the Clouseau mask to steal a bunch of money and disguise it as candy bars, and Weaver is the Scotland Yard mole, but is killed in a fight. Everything winds up on the boat carrying the bars, which Clouseau causes to sink and ruins the heist. His job complete, he then returns home. The series took a 7-year gap until the next entry, but came back strong with 1975's The Return of the Pink Panther. And it does return, since the diamond is back, resting in its native country. And look at that! Our animated buddy is back after not being in the intro for 12 years. And that music is back too. One night, a shadowy thief breaks into the museum and expertly steals the diamond, leaving behind the glove, the calling card of the Phantom. In order to get it back, they call in the man who helped to recover it the last time, Inspector Clouseau. He's been demoted to a beat cop, and Dreyfus is back, and I guess he wasn't held responsible for killing those people in A Shot in the Dark, and his assistant Chevalier is back too. There's a big old close-up of a newspaper letting us know that we're set in the August of 1974, so it's also 7 years after the last film, assuming you have that in the same continuity. Kato is back as well, and the inspector heads to Lugach to solve the case. But then, the Phantom himself is back, Sir Charles, although David Niven was unavailable, so he's now General Chang. Weirdly, there's another newspaper that says January 24th, but I hardly think that this is now 6 months later, so it's just a misprint. Charles is married to Claudine, and he tells her that he retired from thievery 4 years ago and did not steal the diamond, but he's Clouseau's top suspect. Someone keeps trying to kill him, and he trails Charles's wife, while the man himself goes to Lugach to clear his own name. Meanwhile, the inspector dresses up in a series of outlandish outfits in order to keep tabs on Claudine, and eventually, Colonel Sharkey of the secret police corners Charles and Claudine, thinking that they have the diamond, which is true because Claudine stole it to bring some excitement into their marriage. And then Sharkey intends to kill them and Clouseau, but is shot by Dreyfus, who is once again revealed to be the man trying to assassinate the inspector. We're then told that he was found not guilty by reason of insanity, and that Clouseau was promoted to his job, and the Pink Panther is returned. However, Charles is the Phantom once again, while Dreyfus is still plotting revenge. That one was a huge hit, so 1 year later in 1976, the next entry arrived with The Pink Panther Strikes Again. Dreyfus is still in the hospital, and it's said that he's now cured and no longer triggered by the thought of Clouseau, but then the inspector comes to visit and immediately makes his life hell. They say he's the new chief inspector, and the ending of the last movie said that he was given that position, so it seems like it's a short while after that one. But then Dreyfus says that it's been 3 years that he's been in there, so this is actually 3 years after, and that would make it 1977 here, and he's recommitted. That music's back, and the cartoon Panther's back too, and Dreyfus escapes, intent on killing Clouseau. Cato's back again, and Dreyfus calls to trick him and says that he's been on the force for 9 years, which would only go back to 1968, so seems to be incorrect, although he could be talking about a different division or something. Like he's been in one particular section since then. There's a transport order here that seems to say 76 on it, but it's not clear if that's a date. But it's possible this is meant to be 76 and that Dreyfus was rounding up by saying 3 years, but this also may not be a date. A prisoner escapes transport and is enlisted by Dreyfus, who is now building a criminal empire and has a nuclear physicist and his daughter kidnapped. Clouseau goes to England to investigate and ends up at a drag show, which I'm told should make this movie an X rating or end civilization or something. And then Dreyfus becomes a full-on supervillain and televises a message to the whole world demanding Clouseau be turned over to him or he'll destroy the world. But then the inspector finds a clue, and it's an ad for Oktoberfest, and it's dated for September to October of 1976, and he says it begins the day after tomorrow, so I guess it's September of 1976 here. So that 3-year comment is odd, although if the last film actually was that January date and not the August one, then this would be about 2 years and 7 or 8 months later, so I could see him rounding up to 3 years that way. Dreyfus vanishes the UN building, and a bunch of countries assign assassins to get him, but they all fail, and along the way, a Russian agent falls in love with him. She helps him find Dreyfus's lair, and he bumbles his way into destroying the evil plans, and the device is activated, which deletes the entire castle, including Dreyfus. The inspector returns home where Olga awaits, but so does Cato. The next entry arrived 2 years later in 1978, and it was Revenge of the Pink Panther. And Mr. Eddie is here, or is it that Dick Laurent? He meets up a guy who's looking for 11 other angry men, and his secretary should be in a death trap. He's the head of a shadowy cabal and says that Clouseau has been a thorn in their side for the past 10 years. And this newspaper tells us that it's October of 1977. So we're now right around 1 year after the last one. And I guess that 10 years and 1 year later matches that 9-year thing that they said in the last movie. There's another animated intro, and the inspector is back, and their assassination attempt fails, so they call in a hitman. Cato's back too, though, and after a criminal steals his clothes and car, and it's blown up, everyone thinks that he's dead. Because of that, Chevalier is back, and he says that they're calling in Dreyfus, and he's completely cured of his insanity upon hearing that Clouseau is dead. Weirdly, no one mentions the fact that he turned into a master criminal and killed people and was also disintegrated. He's once again made chief inspector, and I'm not really sure how to reconcile that. Like, no one makes any mention of it, so I guess that he was restored to life and then put back into the asylum. Clouseau decides to use the fact that everyone thinks he's dead, and Duvier has to split with Simone to appease his wife. He then orders her dead, but Clouseau ends up saving her, and she gives him the information about Duvier's operation. He then goes undercover, first as a goofy Asian stereotype, and then a goofy Italian one, and everything leads to a big chase through the streets of Hong Kong, with Dreyfus once again trying to kill the inspector, but he eventually saves the day. It's revealed to the world that he's alive and he's honored with a medal. Okay, here's where things get weird, because the next entry came 4 years later, in 1982, with The Trail of the Pink Panther. And Peter Sellers had passed away in 1980, 18 months before production began on this picture. It begins once again with the Pink Panther diamond and yet another thief getting his hands on it, and another animated opening. Clouseau is here again, but this was actually footage that was cut from the Pink Panther Strikes Again. Harvey Korman is here as Professor Balls, a character that was in the last film, but this was actually his first appearance and was cut from that film, but Korman didn't return for revenge. Patsy is here, reporting on the Panther's theft, and Dreyfus is back, and there's another newspaper, and it says that it's February of 1982. So we're now 4.5 years after the last film. Clouseau suspects Sir Charles again, and again, this is treated as all new stuff, but it's just outtakes from Strikes Again. And weirdly, Dreyfus seems to have a wife here, although she's never been mentioned before. But then we get to the new storyline, as it said that Clouseau's plane has gone missing, and Marie is trying to investigate to find out the story. Robert Loggia returns as a different character, and Kato is back, and there's like a clip show of him attacking. There's the return of Hercule Lajoie, who we haven't seen since A Shot in the Dark, but then Sir Charles is back, and it's David Niven again, returning to the role. But also, Simone Clouseau is back, and she's seemingly married to Charles now, so I guess ignoring the events of earlier. But Charles says that he met Clouseau 20 years ago, and technically it would be 19, but he's simply rounding. And they say that Simone divorced Clouseau in 1964 and married Charles a year later. So I guess Claudine just doesn't exist anymore? Meanwhile, here's a tidbit. David Niven was really ill here, and when it came time to do the ADR sessions, his voice was too weak and he was unable. So they hired impressionist Rich Little to come in and imitate his voice.
He was a fool, but he epitomized the 11th commandment.
Porkins is here, and a little later we meet the inspector's father, tending to yet another empty nest. Details are given about Clouseau's early life and a woman he was in love with, and I guess fought in World War II, and at the end, Marie posits that he's still out there and still alive, and we see a man on a cliffside insinuating that she's right. The very next year, in 1983, they just kept going with The Curse of the Pink Panther. Since it was never solved who stole the diamond in the last one, we open with a recap of its theft, and a woman is trying to buy it, but Clouseau shows up and we only see him in shadow, and it leaves him on a cliffhanger. There's then another animated intro with our pink friend, and then Dreyfus and Duval are back, and Interpol wants to use a computer to find a replacement for Clouseau and locate the greatest detective in the world. The computer is evaluating Dreyfus and starts to say when he was born, but doesn't say the year, although it says that he was born on April 1st, and also that he was committed in May of 1978 after a breakdown, which is wild because that time frame is after Revenge and before Trail, and I guess he should have been in the asylum there since he was trying to kill Clouseau at the end there, but in Trail he's just back in his gig. But it turns out that Dreyfus doesn't want them to find Clouseau, so he has the computer sabotaged. Kato is back as well, and the computer makes its selection, programmed to find the worst detective in the world. It picks Clifton Slay, played by Ted Wass from Oh God, You Devil. The brother from another planet is here for a second, and Langlois is back from the last film, and Slay is sent overseas and immediately makes Dreyfus's life a living hell, and he visits a museum dedicated to the inspector and shows all of his previous disguises. Kato attacks him and tells him Balls is the last person that saw Clouseau, and there's a poster for a French film called Le Fossier, which came out in 1981, but we know that we're past that. Balls is back, and he's Corman again, which is weird, mainly because he was Balls, then they cut his scenes, and then the character came back, played by someone else, but then they used that cut footage, and now have the cut actor back? There's attempts on Slay's life, and he goes to Lagash, and there we see the Countess Chandra. And she's with someone who sounds like Clouseau, but has just had facial surgery. Sir Charles is back, as is Simone, and they're still married, and George is back too for the first time since the original film. Charles says that he was questioned 3 days after the robbery on the 3rd of August, even though the last film said it was stolen in February. Meanwhile, this is Niven's final film since he died just before this film's release. Munson's back as well, and hey, look at that! It's a little baby Billy Mack trying to plot out a Christmas #1. Mr. Chong returns from Revenge of, and eventually Slay ends up there in the lair of Chandra, and a saint is here, and it's Clouseau, after plastic surgery, hiding out with the Countess. She says he came to her about a year ago, so it looks like this is officially a year later, so it's in 1983. She had the Panther, but it's been stolen from her, and the Phantom has left his calling card again, and they claim they found the inspector's body and closed the case. The franchise went away for 10 years, but finally returned in 1993 with Son of the Pink Panther. It begins with some Panther action, and one of the Fratellis is here, and he's keeping his eye on the Princess of Lagash, and then kidnaps her in order to get her father to relinquish his throne. But then, a police officer appears that may climb over your seat, and Dreyfus is back as well. Jacques is as clumsy as you'd expect, which sets Dreyfus off right away, and he has a series of klutzy moments. We meet Jacques' mother, and get ready for this because it's confusing for no reason. She's played by Claudia Cardinal, who was in the very first Pink Panther film, playing Princess Dala. But that's not who she is here. But she's not a new character either, as she's meant to be Maria Gambrelli. Maria from A Shot in the Dark, although Elke Summer played her there, but declined to return here. Dreyfus notices that Jacques has a familiar name and says that he knew a Jacques, but he died 10 years ago. And if we're going by when they declared him dead, then that would be 1993 real time. It's revealed that Clouseau is Jacques' dad, although the inspector wasn't aware of him, which means that he was likely conceived right after Shot in the Dark, and that was mid-64, so he would be born in 65, which would make him 28 years old here, which, Benini was 41 at the time, but I guess he's meant to be 28. He ends up getting locked into the same prison as the princess, and I guess she falls for him. Dreyfus bonds with Maria, and she says that Jacques doesn't know that Clouseau is his father and worshipped him as a police officer. And they tell him his identity, so they declare that he'll change his name. Professor Balls is back, and son of a bitch, he's back to being played by Graham Stark. Cato returns, sporting white hair now, and there's a newspaper, and I can't quite make out the date, but did you know the Middle Eastern writing is just English with fancy details? Eventually he finds where they've moved the princess to and is aided by the Lagash army in going in to save her, facing off against Zarba, with Cato finishing him off. Dreyfus and Maria decide to get married, making him Jacques' stepdad now, and I guess forgiving the hundreds of times that he literally tried to murder his actual dad. But then it's revealed that Jacques actually has a sister named Jacqueline, and he's honored by the princess. That one was a flop and ended the franchise until 13 years later, when it was decided that it was remake time. We meet our new Dreyfus, and it's Kevin Kline, and fun fact, he was going to play Jacques in Son of Pink Panther, but dropped out when he read the script. Clouseau himself is now a jerk, and during a massive football match, the French coach is seen wearing the Pink Panther diamond, now much smaller and on a ring. The coach is transporting it, and his girlfriend is Beyoncé, stretching those acting skills by playing a pop star. France wins, but Gluant is struck by a poison dart and killed, with the diamond disappearing. The animated intro is still here with a modified cartoon Clouseau, and Dreyfus wants to win a prestigious award by solving the case himself while assigning an incompetent Clouseau to the case to attract media attention. I don't know why he needs that step instead of just solving the case himself, but the movie seems to think it's important, so okay. Emily Mortimer is here, and they give Clouseau an assistant, and he's a professional. He says he'll attack him at random times, much like Kato, and then Olive Snook pops in, as does Clive Owen as Agent 006. Get it? He's like 007, but one less. They begin their investigation with Ponton doing most of the actual work, and 006 gives him his coat while letting him take credit for his crime stopping. They go to New York, and there's a poster up for the show, Ada, and that ran between 2000 and 2004, so we're set in that time period. They framed the inspector to make him look bad, and he gets demoted. On his computer, I guess while he's downloading a ringtone of BYOB from System of a Down, there's a bunch of glitches all showing 2004, so that seems like our year, and then he thinks that he sees something to crack the case. They go to the presidential ball to solve everything and arrest the assistant trainer for the murders, and determines that Zanya has the Pink Panther, but since it was given to her before he died, he determines it's hers, and the case is closed, and Clouseau is hailed as a hero. 2 years later, in 2008, this whole thing wraps up in the Pink Panther 2. There's a number of large-scale thefts, all performed by someone called the Tornado, who leaves behind a calling card. Dreyfus is back, but he's looking a whole lot cleasier now, and they say that they want Clouseau to investigate the thefts, and Dreyfus is freaked out about that. But you know, the last movie actually made it seem like he was actually secretly competent and saved the day, so I'm not sure why this is a big deal. Both Ponton and Nicole are back, and he says that the tornado was active 10 years ago, and then went quiet and is now back. The Pink Panther is on display at a museum, so I guess that Zanya didn't keep it, and Jimmy the Saint is here, as is Dr. Octopus, and they're all part of the team to track the tornado. And then look, it's Edwina Cutwater. Maybe that's why Clouseau's so klutzy. She's controlling his actions. Ponton gets kicked out of his house, so him and the kids stay with Jacques, and it's said that he was given a replica of the Pink Panther, and I'm sure that won't come back into play later, right? Their evidence leads them to a dead ringer for Alfred, and they say that the tornado got a bullet wound in 1996, and that was a little before going away for the 10 years, so this is around 2006, or a little after. However, the real tornado is soon revealed, and when he steals the Pope's ring, a newspaper says that it's September of 2009, so I guess we're 5 years after the first one? His bumbling causes embarrassment, so the rest of the team kicks him off of it, and they seemingly solve the case, finding the tornado dead. All the artifacts are still there except for the Pink Panther, and claims to have destroyed it. There's then this newspaper that says it's November 1st, but I don't think that 2 months have passed, so that's just wrong. And blurry. And then this paper says it's Friday, October 6th, and there's a 206, not 2006. But October 6th was on Friday in 2006, so maybe that's the year? They have a big gala to celebrate solving the case, but Clouseau states that he actually thinks Sonia is the true tornado and still has the Panther with her, and he's right. And he dares her to destroy the Panther, which she does, but oh geez, what a surprise, he swapped it with his replica. He asks Nicole to marry him, and Dreyfus officiates, and that was the end of this series. Although there's been plans to do more for a while now, although they would be a fresh start with either a focus on the Panther instead of Clouseau, or a totally different reboot, one that was reported to have Eddie Murphy as the inspector. So there you have it, a whole bunch of movies which have some continuity, but I mean a lot of things that just do not make any sense. Comedies are a little bit trickier with continuity because things don't really matter as much, but there are some pretty big ones in here, like Dreyfus just basically being deleted from existence and then showing up again as if nothing ever happened. I don't know. Let me know what you think of these. Let me know if you enjoy the Pink Panther series. I really do. There's some really solid films in here. Tell me that down below in the comments. I want to hear it. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you enjoy the channel, of course, subscribe to it. And if you want to, go to my Patreon page at patreon.com/movietimelines, where you can help support this channel. I'd appreciate that. And otherwise, just keep on coming back and watching more videos, because there's plenty more to come. We'll see you very shortly for another great one. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.